Welcome to our channel, Million Dollars Made Easy. On this channel, we run numbers for people. We look and see what the S&P 500 has done for the last 100 years, and we run numbers accordingly. In this video, we want to look at how and when should you fund your cash reserve or your buckets. On this channel, we love to set aside money in a cash reserve account, so when the market's going down, you're taking it out of that cash reserve account. You don't want to take it out of your S&P 500 account because it's already going down. So let's look at an example here. Let's say somebody's got $800,000, 800,000, and they figure their needs are 4,500 a month right now, which would be $54,000 a year. And right now there's nothing in the cash reserve. So the question is, how do you do that? How and when should you fund this cash reserve, this liquid account over here that when the market's going down, you can take your monthly expenses out of it instead of the S&P 500 because you don't want to sell low. You don't want to be a forced seller in a down market. In other words, you don't want to have to fund this 62,000 out of your account that's already going down in value. So you want to somehow get the cash reserve built up. But how do you do that? It's best if you start doing it just a few years before you retire. You can wait till you retire. The problem with doing then is you could try to fund your cash reserve account, the second bucket, from a market that is going down, so you would be selling low. So what would happen, for example, let's just say instead of taking money out, say you've been saving $500 a month. So instead of taking money, not 5,500. Bear with me a second here. So you're taking $500 a month, increasing that by 3% a year. So instead of taking the money out of your account, it's actually accumulating because you aren't taking it out yet. But let's say you retire, you're doing this about 7 or 8 years out, and say in the 7th or 8th year, you're going to take the 4,500 out. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and run the numbers and show you where you would be. And also we want to do one other thing. We want to fund this cash reserve. Right now, it's not really funded. We could fund it with these amounts right here, but I just thought of a different way of doing it. What if, for example, if you just funded it when the market's got good years, let's just say 35,000. We can change any of these numbers. So here's what's going on here. If we had numbers like 1924, there's 5 good years that you could be funding this cash reserve account and get it up to an amount where maybe it might be 4 or 5 times your year's expenses, have that much in a cash reserve account to use when the market's going down. So let's see how that might work out. Again, you'd only do it in the positive years. Notice these red years here, you aren't putting any money into cash reserve. But the positive years, when the market's going up, especially when it's going up a lot, you're going to go ahead and fund this. Again, we can change any of these numbers. This would be 200,000 would be about just under 4 times your annual expenses, which is probably a good amount. Again, I'm not a financial advisor, but have 3 or 4 years worth of expenses. So when the market is going down, it can come out of the cash reserve account. Let's see how many times that would have helped out in the last 100 years running these numbers. Again, you're pre-funding your cash reserve from the S&P 500 when the market's going up, not when it's going down. You want to do that several years in advance so you build up this cash reserve. So by the time you do retire, by the time you do start taking this 4,500 out, you've got a bunch in there to be able to take from when the market's going down. And I want you to notice if you would do this ahead of time, you would not run out of money except possibly in 1929 because 1929 was such a horrible decade. So then if you're doing that, again, you wouldn't be funding your cash reserve until the 5th year when you finally had a positive market. But the market's been going down so much that you'd actually be running out of money in just a short period of time. Actually, not as short as you might think. But again, this is years before you retire. This is seven years before you retire. You're funding this cash reserve account. If for some reason you had returns like 1929, there wouldn't be a whole lot going in there, so you'd be hurting. But every other scenario, look at these numbers. You'd be funding it, getting it up to close to that 200,000. If you get up to 200,000, you can probably don't need to fund it anymore because you've got what you need until it starts going down again. Let's just pick some other years just to show you. 1941, the market went down in 1941, so you did not fund it. But these 4 positive years you funded, it started building up this cash reserve. So that by the time you retired in the 8th year, you had 205,000 in there that you could appropriate for expenses when you do have a down run. So hopefully that makes sense for you. I just love to run numbers for people, but I think people really need to know how to fund this cash reserve and when to do it. And I think a good opportunity is doing it when you've had several years of good markets. Just go ahead and put it in there and go ahead and fund it. You can pick any amount you want. You can pick what maybe once you get to 200,000, which is 4 times your monthly expenses, you probably don't need to keep putting it in there. I mean, if you did, you'd be uh, leaving less money in the S&P 500 to accumulate. But hopefully this makes sense to you. I just want to show you maybe this is a way that you could fund your cash reserve and yet stay mostly in the market. Basically, and I'm using the extreme example of staying in the market 100% of the time, but starting to fund your cash reserve several years in advance when you have some good years. You never want to take it out again in a negative when the market's going down. And notice there's no 35,000 going in your cash reserve then, because that's a reserve for when the market's going down. You're going to take the cash reserve out. When the market's going up, you can go ahead and fund it. That's what we do on this channel. We run all kinds of different numbers. We look different possibilities and maybe answer some questions you might have. Again, we use the actual historical returns for the S&P 500 for the last 100 years, and we simply project ahead what similar returns might do for you in the future. In this video, we're basically looking at the withdrawal stage and how to fund that bucket approach that many people recommend. Please consider subscribing to this channel. Let people know about this channel. Let them know we run all kinds of numbers, look at all kinds of different situations, and just see where you might be in the future. Please like the video and thanks again for watching.